Welcome to the Mechanical Room. A Centrotherm production focusing on all things in and around the HVAC industry. And now, your hosts, Michael Sakaris and Matthew Price.
Καλημέρα φίλους και παιδιά. Είμαστε εδώ για το καινούριο episode για το Mechanical Room. Mr. Price, did you follow that? You should be fluent in Greek by now.
Oh, I know a couple of words. Kuneli, I know.
Rabbit, of all things? Where did you have a rabbit?
Well, no, of course, it's like the thing that's the most important. So before we get into that, we both got back from Greece a couple of days ago. We were in Athens and the island of Kephalonia, which is Mike Sakaris's home island, one of the most beautiful
place of birth.
Yes, one of the most beautiful places I have ever been, and we spent a little time wandering around. If you look at the Monday message, you'll see one from the Myrtos Beach in Kephalonia. I did one from Hadrian's Library that's coming up in a couple of weeks here from Athens. We were took a little time here in August, and he went to his homeland. I visited him in his homeland. We went to the chapel of Saint Herasimos.
My namesake.
Yeah. Amazing time in Greece. Obviously, I'm showing a couple of beach photos right here and other things. My wife is a project manager, and on vacation, it assures that we do everything, and we checked every box in Athens while we were gone. But it is good to be back here in the Mechanical Room. We have an interesting guest today.
What's this? This is season 2, episode 8, I believe, right? Keeping our monthly track going.
Yes, something I'm actually very, very proud of is we set it out. I'd like to get to 2 a month, but man, that'd be asking a lot. But we have not missed a month since we kicked this off last year. We are on season 2, episode 8. It is the blistering summer of August as we wind down the summer. But last month we were at the Navian location.
Yeah, that was fun.
It's actually one of our best viewed, most listened to.
Because it was fun.
Yeah, and hey, Joel, if you're listening, which I know that you do, that one generated some specific leads. People are like, hey, that rack system looks quite attractive. I want to be racking my Navians with that old polypropylene stuff there. And a shout out to Sean Marshall, who is one of our best guests ever.
And quite the rapper.
Quite the rapper, a lot of energy. Obviously, the technical knowledge was there. He is the East Coast Academy trainer, which is a big role for Navian. They fly people in from all across North America so that they could listen to Sean's tutelage, and we're very pleased to provide some of that material for that training room, which he's training week in, week out. So hundreds and hundreds of people are in and out of there every month, learning about high efficiency systems, Navians, and everything.
Combis.
Everything
under the sun.
Yeah, everything that comes with it. So this month we have a different type of guest. We as you mentioned, or as we always talk about, we are Mechanical Room and Mechanical Room adjacent. We've had contractors and manufacturers reps and parallel manufacturers and economists, and we've had advertising executives, and we've had organizational CEOs. That's Talbot. I'm not sure what you call Hardy exactly. He's
industry trade organization.
Yes, exactly. But today we have Dan Vastyan, who, if you Google his name, you will see an untold, like a cornucopia of articles that run the gamut of all of the industry trade magazines that with profiles on contractors that and topics that are near and dear to our heart. Hydronics.
He and his organization, I believe, are the ones that are generating the articles, right? Going into the field and doing the site visits and educating people who subscribe to the magazines, correct?
Yeah, all of that and more, really. So, he has helped elevate some really famous, some really notable names in the industry by profiling them and their work. So we're going to cover all of that now that we're back. I think maybe show another beach photo right here. if I remember to do it. If not, it's just gonna be me waving around, We'll see how much editing I can get into here. But I mean, that was a beautiful time, beautiful trip, great time, great to be back as we gear up into heating season. And before we get to Dan Vastyan, let's take a look at Show Us Your Pipe. Highlighting particular installations that are fabulous and show the craftsman type of stuff. This is a bit of a different one this month because we're kind of focusing on a company and a man himself, Aaron Bond and Yes Plumbing. We're just going to show a couple of reels that are all recent stuff. It's mostly one building with one exception.
And quite the building.
Yeah, quite the building. So we're just going to cut in some of this footage that Aaron is recording at these job sites here. He's installing a couple. There's a TurboMax installation that you're going to see. There is some ProPress going on. There is racks of Navians, and obviously there's a lot of our stuff that is being installed. You can see, the hole saw going through. You can see them doing the supports and actually lubricating the gasket and stuff, which is fascinating because everybody has their own way of doing it.
I've become more of a fan of lubricating the gasket than lubricating the straight edge. I used to do the straight pipe.
Yeah.
But I have migrated to lubricating the gasket more now.
I wonder if it's more of an economical way to do it because, ultimately, you're definitely going to get it where it needs to go. Yeah. If you're going up the male end a little bit, potentially you're wasting a little bit, I suppose. Not like
it's
this
a little tighter and neater. I don't know. It just.
Yeah, I don't know. It's
I like it better that way.
Me too. I was watching Daryl from Impetus actually glue some iron fittings together, I think it was, and he was using it wasn't vent pipe, so no worries, none of that PVC stuff. But it was Daryl from Impetus was doing something where it was like plumbing. And he meticulously wiped the primer afterwards and stuff like that. So
that's what craftsmen do.
Yeah,
man.
indeed.
That's what they do.
And putting the stuff on the gas to tie it back, to put it on the gasket, as you put the pipe in, it goes straight in. There's no extra glisten. It stuff dries away, and it's not really a big deal. But I wonder if it is that much cleaner, that much more accurate, and whatnot. So I'll have to ask Aaron that next time we do it. So
or the engineering department. We'll go talk to the engineering department.
Aaron might know more.
He might. He installs it every day, so we're close to every day.
So thanks to Aaron. As I said, we're just going to show a couple of these amazing reels. So you might be seeing some for the second time here because some of this footage is just so worth it. Shout out to whoever did the editing. Yeah. There's one particular thing that they're doing here, which some people say is a little overused in Hollywood, but it works really, really well in these reels, which is called speed ramping. Do you notice that?
I give me the definition of speed ramping.
So you've seen the movie 300. I know.
Just a few times.
So speed ramping is something that 300 overuses the point of comic. Okay. It's like almost laughable. So okay. If you think about 300, what's going on? There's a lot of play with slow motion and speeding up.
Yeah.
So,
okay, all right.
So 300 was a movie that was filmed with a very high frame rate, which allows you to play with slow motion and fast motion without losing quality.
Okay.
And so if you think about how those action scenes are, there's a lot of slow, and then all of a sudden speeds up, and then he kicks the guy in the chest or whatever it is, right?
I got it. Now I know what speed ramping is.
So there's a lot of speed ramping in these reels, and it adds a certain flavor to them. It's one of those things that dorky creators pay attention to and notice.
And guess what? We're talking a lot about grease again, even with the movie today.
Yes, indeed. Well, So shout out to Gladiator, Aaron Bond and his whole crew who are doing incredible stuff. The winners of the August Show Us Your Speed Ramping contest. Welcome back to the mechanical room, and we welcome in Dan Vastyan. Before we get into it, I want to give a quick bio for him. He is the president of Common Ground, a trade communications firm. He is coming to us live and direct from Cody, Wyoming, a state that is currently in the news, but we'll not talk about
that for later.
The current primary situation going on in Wyoming, but it is everywhere in the news. Dan has written about the state-of-the-art mechanical systems and professionals that design and install them since 2010. He writes about HVAC, hydronics, plumbing, mechanical topics, radiant heat, geothermal, solar, broad building systems, the industry overall, and has profiled some of our industry favorites. We're going to get more into that in a bit. Articles of recent include Hydronics brings the heat to Pagosa Springs, and a fascinating spotlight on a growing Pennsylvania trade school that a manufacturer sort of helped get rolling, and I'd love to talk a little bit about that too. You can find his writing on ACHR News, PHCP Pros, Engineered Systems, Plumbing and Mechanical, SNPs, Contracting Business, Indoor Comfort Marketing, Hydronics Hub, and more. Let's welcome in the Nittany Lion himself. He went to Penn State. Dan Vastyan. Mike, say hello to our guest.
Hello there, Dan. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Good morning, gentlemen. How are you guys?
We're doing good. Good morning to you. So I guess let's kick it off with who is Uncommon or Common Grounds, and
Uncommon Ground is a coffee shop in Albany
that we frequently visit. So who is Common Grounds? What do you do there? And what services does the company provide?
Yeah, so the coffee shop thing is very frequently confused with my company, Common Ground. So Common Ground traces its roots back to my dad was a journalist in the Army, and when he came out, he started looking for jobs. He started at the Hershey Med Center covering like the first bionic heart back then, and somehow, I don't exactly know how, he transitioned to the HVAC industry working for a PR company called Godfrey Advertising. And I believe his first accounts there were York International and Burnham Boiler at the time. And so he did that since the mid 80s. Then he went out on his own. He was with another firm at one point, SWB&R, which did the same thing Godfrey did. And he lost his job there. They were downsizing right before 9/11 happened. And he had a ticket to go somewhere, I forget where. He had a ticket on the second plane to hit the trade towers. And his colleague, she was still with the company. He lost his job like 2 days before 9/11. Had the ticket stub for the second plane that was going to hit the towers. His colleague, I forget her name, she died on that flight, obviously. And for him, it was just, I just remember him being like really just sketched out for obvious reasons following the 9/11 disaster.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So he,
This interview has started extremely intensely.
Drama. We like the drama.
Yeah. So he didn't really, it took him like a day or two to get his head back.
I'm surprised it was only a day or
Back
two.
then.
Having a ticket for a flight. I mean, that day to this day, since, makes my skin crawl. I remember exactly where I was, what I was doing.
You know where I was?
You were in New York.
I was in New York City.
Yeah.
And it is one
Oh
of
my
2
God.
days that I have legitimately been terrified in my life.
What was the other day?
Oh, I've told you.
What's the other one?
Yeah.
So kind of a long
His
story.
first day started.
No, yeah. It was I was a young whippersnapper at Centrotherm, and these plastic pipes were very imposed. No, it was actually at the IT Festival, which is a festival thrown by Fish. The year was 2003. I drank a bottle of tequila and I lost my crew. There's so much more to this story, but I was very disoriented, obviously, and I didn't know where to go. I had to go to the bathroom. I went off the side, and this is all this is true. There's actually video of my return to the group when I found it, and I was so relieved. But I went and I took a piss behind this gas station that didn't exist anymore, like a busted out one. And when I turned back around, I didn't know where to go. Clearly, I was not thinking straight. And I thought it was a good idea to take off running. And I ran, and clearly I ran in the wrong direction, because at some point I turned around and I come to the top of this hill.
How old were you for this?
I was 19. So I come to the top of a hill, and I look one way, I look the other way. I can't see anybody. I'm in like on the Canadian border of Maine, and my ticket, my car keys, my driver's license were all elsewhere. I wasn't wearing a shirt. And I had no idea what I was doing, and I had no idea where I was, and I felt like I was not going to get into this festival, and it was like certainly a panic set in. And then this couple driving a pickup truck comes past, and they see like this disoriented hippie kid at the top of the hill, and they know that this whole fish nonsense is happening like nearby, and they're like, "Get in, idiot." And they drove me to where the line was of the cars, and I mean, I knew that at that point it must be like ahead now. So I followed the line of the cars until I found my own car, which my friend Dan was driving at the time. Yeah, there's actually some funny video of me returning to the group, and they're like, "Where were you?" And I was like, "Oh my God, I'm not sure where I was." So much more interesting than 9/11, actually.
Yeah, I guess you can say that. So back to 9/11.
I mean, you could have been killed by a moose or something,
Yeah.
That is true. So back to your story. We went on a nice little aside there.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Back to your story. So your dad's supposed to be on some flights. It was the flight you didn't want to be on. I can imagine how shaken he was. I was not on any flight. I was in New York the week before, and the week after. But continue your story. How did this all come to be?
So after he lost his job there, that whole thing happened. So he started talking with some people in the industry, some friends he'd made, some contacts, and he decided just to go out on his own. He picked up one account that he started doing steady work for, and said, "You know what? I'm not gonna go back to one of the agencies. I'm just gonna start my own boutique public relations agency," and that's kind of what he did. And then I think it was at ASHRAE, this past ASHRAE, as he'll never retire, and he kind of admits that he loves it too much, but he did want to take a step back, and he made me president of the firm back in January. So we serve a number of different manufacturers in the heating and cooling space, so kind of hydronics heavy, but yeah, 3 or 4 or 5 different manufacturers. We do their PR work, and that's Common Ground.
Can you want to name who those are? I'm curious, because I mean, we're pretty tapped into that type of stuff, so I'm curious if we've actually seen your work secondhand, let's say, as it goes through the channels of the manufacturer.
Sure. So U.S. Boiler Company and all of the Burnham subsidiaries on the boiler side, Takeo Pumps, Fujitsu's heat pump systems, Evapco cooling towers, and the whole Watts family of companies.
So that's why you're friends with Ryan. That's how you know Ryan.
Yes. Yep. That's how I know Ryan. And
he was a former podcast guest and someone I had dinner with like last weekend.
So here on the Mechanical Room, we've had all kinds of different guests, right? We had Ryan, as we mentioned. We've had economists. We've had installers. I mean, it's a wide breadth of people that touch, the ACR business. We've never had a PR guy before. So for some of our listeners, it's like, hey, everybody's heard of PR, but really, what is PR? What do you, I mean, you've got some big companies, right? Takeo, leader in what they do, Watts, in many different, aspects of the industry, leaders in what they do.
Absolutely.
How does a company like yourself, what do they do exactly? We all have heard of PR, but what does that mean? And how do these big companies reach out, for the boutique PR company? Why do they do that? What is it that you offer that's so unique and special?
So kind of the difference, PR is a subset within marketing, right? So marketing could include anything between, throwing customer appreciation parties, running advertising, that kind of thing. So what we do is almost completely editorial. So let's take, I think we have a mutual friend in Aaron Bond, right? Yeah. One of the finest installers that I've ever met. And, he's in Canada, does absolutely stunning work. All you have to do is look at his Instagram and you'll be like, wow, this dude is next level. And Aaron's got some crazy stories too. He's a very interesting dude, very interesting background. Anyway, so let's just focus on Aaron Bond for a second. What I'll do is I'll learn about somebody from Bond or somebody like Bond, and that may be like the manufacturer or one of the manufacturer's representatives comes to us and says, hey, this dude Bond up in Canada is doing some crazy stuff with our fill in the blank. Can we work with Aaron in any capacity? So they'll introduce me to this guy. And what I really prefer to do is go visit a site, like maybe visit a site that Aaron's working on, go see it myself. My wife's a professional videographer. I'm a photographer. So if we can go and generate digital content, photos and videos while we're there, that's awesome. If for whatever reason we can't do that, schedule doesn't line up, there for a while I couldn't have gone to Canada if I'd have wanted to, last year or the year before, right? In the event that I cannot go and visit a job site, or if I don't need to, and in Aaron's case, I mean, as much as I want to meet Aaron, I don't need to go up there right now because he's actually working with a photographer, videographer in Canada to generate the photo video content.
Yeah, boy, is he ever.
So,
I mean,
yeah,
we highlighted some of that stuff earlier in the program, and man, when you say he does professional work, and man, does he capture it well. Absolutely, we are in full agreement.
Yeah, we throw a word around here all the time, craftsman. We use that term
100%.
a lot for a lot of different things. But let me tell you, I mean, Aaron, I mean, his work is, I don't want to say second to none, but upper echelon tier work.
He's really somebody that a lot of installers look to for inspiration, and I mean, because he's really, he puts that shine on those installs.
Quite literally. I mean, I think his latest post had some diamond plate, which we always talk about.
Of course.
And he had it, he had it laser cut to show, the label of what it was, next to that, next to that piece of diamond plate.
Yeah.
It's amazing stuff.
Just high level.
Yeah, for sure.
Go on.
He's extremely high level. And on that job too, I'm sure that the owner has the budget for that kind of fit and finish, which doesn't happen on every job. But when you can do it, holy cow, does it raise some eyebrows. And there's other guys like Aaron too, Terrence Chan over on the west coast of Canada. You got Andy Mickelson. Yeah. Oh, he's been on with you guys?
Yeah. Terrence has become a personal friend over the years now. Actually, if you look at our Instagram today, our dear marketing associate Alex is rocking some impetus swag today. So I took a quick photo over there. Terrence is A+, and Daryl is A+, and he cultivates the team of professional installers as well. Shout out to Calvin, to Lawson, to Jason. All of those guys are under the wing of Terrence, who is a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, oh, he is. And it's funny, I called Terrence out one time because in his photos, I was like, dude, you guys, your company logos are on Arc'teryx jackets. And so if you know what Arc'teryx is, like, that's a $300 coat. You don't see that. Like, it's the only time I've ever seen an HVAC dude that's got Arc'teryx on his coat.
High fashion, high style. No question.
I have a couple of impetus shirts. They're extremely nice. Terrence he brings swag to the plumbing and heating and HVAC industries, and that's kind of like, I mean, we love what he does. I'm a fan of him as a human being as well. He's like super generous and kind and fun. But I mean, he is just his own thing, and I look to him for inspiration of the stuff that we do here at Centrotherm often.
And so forward thinking.
Oh, completely.
Yes. Yeah, and there's a lot of guys. I mean, in the grand scheme of the HVAC industry, there aren't a ton of guys. There's hundreds of thousands of dudes that do great work, right? But then there's these guys that take it to the next level.
Sure.
And in the U.S., you've got guys like Eric Awney, Andy Mickelson, Kiefer Rader, Steve Fernandez, Vince Young at Vertex Mechanical, Kelby Anderson over on Friday Harbor Island. There's a lot of these guys, and I've been so fortunate to meet with them and talk with them and form friendships in a lot of cases. It's just, if you're new to the HVAC industry, and if you don't know, you think, oh yeah, these, they put in my boiler, or they fixed my toilet, or oh yeah, my furnace works, right? If that's all you understand about, that's a super, super, super basic understanding of this industry. And then we haven't even talked about the big commercial stuff. What these guys do on giant commercial jobs is mind-boggling, especially when you're talking about now with these green buildings, or even just more indoor air quality minded. All these interconnected systems, everything works together. You've got dedicated air, you've got in-floor heat, it's just insane. And
Yeah.
people don't wrap their head around what the HVAC industry is. So it's super cool. But anyway, so back to kind of like what we do with PR. So you've got Aaron Bond. If I can't be there myself, and I've never worked with an installer like Aaron that has his own media crew. That's completely new to me. So let's just set Aaron aside for a second, only because that's a strange situation. Not strange, it's a phenomenal situation that he's generating content like that. But it's strange in
It's an outlier.
It is 100%. I never see that. So if
visionary
Yeah.
in expanding not only his own business, but expanding and helping the industry in the way 100%. He does.
And that's actually something, before I even go on, is something that a lot of these guys like Terrence and Ani and Bond are big supporters of the trades overall. Michael Flynn is another example of someone like this, and Jeff, at First Choice. These guys who are doing this work, creating the content, and sharing the knowledge, which uplifts, their entire network of people as well. I mean, I'm sure you've seen the comment chains where it's like, I literally learned something from this post kind of thing. That's why they do it. That's why those guys who are the most authentic and professional are the cream of the crop and rise up. And I mean, they are there for anybody with any question. Cracks me up. I mean, it's a full-time job in addition to their full-time job to be the tech support team and also a cheerleader for the industry and all this sort of stuff. These guys have unmatched energy, and Bond is right up there with the rest of those guys.
Yeah, and Flynn's a great example too. I visited him maybe 2 years ago now, and he was just telling me about his Instagram and everything, and he'll be the first one to say, he's like, yeah, I'm disseminating information here, but I pick stuff up too. People will reply to a post and be like, hey, that's kick ass, but I do it this way. And you kind of have that head scratch moment where you're like, oh yeah, that would work. So, a lot of these guys will be like, yeah, I'm putting my stuff out there, but I'm picking stuff up too. But again, Flynn's a great example in that what they're doing with their social media platforms, what you said there, it's 100% true. These guys are not only slinging tools and doing awesome work in the field, but now they're also, I mean, if you want to use the term, they've become influencers. Yeah. And they're educators. And that in and of itself, giving your Instagram, your YouTube, your whatever, that much attention, which is what it takes. You have to be that dedicated if you're gonna come that high up on it. That's a full-time job in and of itself. These guys have to make these reels and make these posts, and they're thoughtful about it. It's not just like, oh, here's a photo, right? It's like, here's why I did this, and this is the application, and this is why this didn't work. And so they're dedicating a lot of time to creating that kind of content. But Flynn would be kind of the case study for what I do, in that I'll go visit with Flynn, I'll take photos, then I'll have a conversation with him. We'll follow up a number of times on the phone. I'll write either a case study or a feature story about those guys, whoever I visit. And then I will take that case study, everybody involved reviews it, pair it with the photos, and then I will offer it to the magazines, and they'll publish the article. And that's why you see my name in so many of the magazines. I write it, but that's, I write it, I do the photos, but the information is largely from them. I can't obviously do what I do without guys operating out there at a high level and taking the time out of their day to spend with me, take me to their job site, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and you're clearly picking some winners there, because out of all the names, and we're very fortunate to have relationships with pretty much everybody you mentioned there. you know, they can see the value of what you do as well, and it all becomes a nice positive feedback loop, which then at the end of the day also uplifts, you know, the trades as well, which is really at the heart of a lot of what they're doing, bringing their professionalism to what they do. I mean, you watch Flynn's Instagram, I mean, he makes those bends and he's like a proud father on like a college graduation day, you know. It's really, it radiates. And that's why, I mean, he's somebody who he's not like super flashy, like, you know, it's not, it's straight up plumbing work, you know, it's straight up HVAC stuff. It's not a lot of like fluffy graphics and whatnot, and that's his angle, and it radiates authenticity, and that's why Flynn is like one of the top guys around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's cool to see what they're doing, and I'll often encourage these guys after something runs in print, when I can get a PDF of the article, I'm like, dude, put this on your website, you know, just show people, like, you're not bragging, you're just showing people the level of work that you're capable of doing. And there's a lot more that's involved with public relations, whether it's representation at trade shows and stuff like that. But the heart of it is writing and pairing writing with great photos. That's pretty much my bailiwick.
So you rattled off like basically the Mount Rushmore of HVAC and plumbing right now. Who's somebody on your list that you'd like to work with in the future?
Oh man, you know, that's tough, because a lot of times I don't know the guys before somebody either brings them to me, or I find them, or I find them on my own, whether via Instagram or whatever. But if you guys have some suggestions for me, hey, pay attention to this guy, I'm all over it.
Well,
We'll circle back with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll write you an email after we're done here with a few different ideas, because there's, you know, we're luckily, I mean, our job as manufacturers is to sort of have the knowledge of the ground level contracting who put the stuff in, right? You know, wholesale channel and other elements are sort of intermediaries between us making it and the people, actually the end users, right? So we try to have good, you know, relationship with the contractors and sort of have our ear to ground in the industry. So there's an interesting spectrum of people who handle our stuff. So I will certainly continue that conversation offline with you and just throw out a few ideas, of which there is no limitation.
Yeah. And part of, you know, what some of the things that we've got to do as an organization is really understand what the guys that are actually doing the real work in the world, the guys using the tools, what they experience, what they need, how do we make their jobs easier? And you know, that's what manufacturers do, right? We're supposed to work with our engineering department to develop better solutions for them, right? To make their job easier. So we try, you know, by design to connect with these guys, to create a relationship with them. So, you know, how is our product? Is it performing well? You know, Ani, you know, made a post a few months ago about our product and, you know, the shape it was in when he picked it up from the, you know, from the distributor. The other day, actually, Ani again made a post about how to bevel, you know, deburr and bevel the product. I mean, and it's like, you know what, we need something. You know, Matthew and I were talking about it yesterday. We need a better, you know, a beveling mechanism. You know, how do we tackle this? And it's kind of a symbiotic relationship. So we try to have those connections, and then we got to bridge it, right? We're making stuff, they're installing stuff, and then there's a process in between, right? How do we get it to market? You know, who are the channel partners that we need to work with? Who are the reps that can bring it to market? So we try, and that's part of what our podcast is about. The Mechanical Room is, you know, it's not about our product. Our product is one small piece of the overall equation. But how do we get it from the manufacturer to somebody's home or to a hospital or to a school? What's that process look like? And hence, you know, one of the reasons why we have you here, because again, you do something unique with PR. So I'll tie in all that together, I guess. You have a relationship with many publications, as Matthew introduced earlier. How do you work to bring exposure to everybody out there? Are you on contract with these guys to create X number of articles a year, or are you out there almost like freelancing, right? Hey, here's a cool installation, here's a cool new product. You partner with somebody that's doing the install, you write up an article, and then you pitch it back to the publications. How does that work? That relationship work for you guys?
I guess in the eyes of the magazines, I'm freelance. There's no contract or anything like that. It's a matter of just the content that I can generate and who's interested in it. And when you're dealing with a network of so many phenomenal installers, there's usually interest, almost always interest. So yeah, there's no contract involved, but so I don't get paid by the magazines if that's what you're. But to answer your previous question about who would I work with if I could, I mentioned earlier Kelby Anderson, Northwest Waterworks, Friday Harbor Island, Washington. Kelby is a personal friend. But I've never worked with him in a work capacity. I've seen his work. Every time we get together, we talk shop, and it just blows my mind. I mean, he's in an area with Friday Harbor's the Martha's Vineyard of the West Coast, right? So he's in an area with big budgets, big architectural homes, and that's not to say that I'm only interested in giant houses. I'm absolutely interested in the 1,200 square foot, 200-year-old farmhouse in Massachusetts that had a unique problem, and this guy solved it. That is just as much of interest. But if I could work with anybody, let's say if I had an opportunity to work with somebody new in December of this year, October this year, whatever, I'd have to say Kelby would be high on that list.
Excellent. Well, we'll make sure he gets a copy of this.
Yeah.
And hey, come on out. I got a 200-year-old farmhouse on the West Coast, Martha's Vineyard, and we need a profile on this. So bring the camera. So you're out in Cody, Wyoming, and you are a Penn State grad, correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
That's East Coast, and I guess the Rockies, or I don't know what you even call Wyoming. It's not
Is
quite.
that considered a flyover state, Wyoming? I'm not sure.
The eastern 3/4 of it is considered a flyover state. It's oceans. The best way I can describe it is just oceans of sagebrush.
Okay.
And it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous in its own right. It's an underrated part of the country. But where we live, so we are on the front range of the Rockies. In Cody, we're the eastern gate to Yellowstone.
Okay.
So we saw the whole Yellowstone thing when Yellowstone flooded this year. We're right there, and the word that everybody else got was, oh, Yellowstone's shut down. Well, there's 5 entrances to Yellowstone. 2 of them are currently shut down. The whole park shut down for 4 or 5 days, something like that. But 3 of the entrances, West Yellowstone, Jackson Hole, and Cody, were relatively unaffected by the flooding. Silvergate and Gardner are still closed, and they may be closed for some time. But yeah, that's where we're at. I moved out here in 2019. We just wanted to get out west. It was one of those things. So Common Ground is still pretty much based in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. My dad's there, my sister's there.
I was
Were
just
you?
there. Oh yeah,
Okay.
I was there for the APR Supply buying show.
Yeah.
You probably are aware of. It's a 100-year-old company at this point. So if you're in Lancaster, you know those guys.
You do. Yeah, that's a great company. So yeah, the company's still based in Lancaster. And we moved out here, and my thing is, I can work pretty much anywhere I have an internet connection. And right about the time I moved, what was it, like 9 months after we moved out here, COVID hit. So it wasn't as much on the job. We weren't traveling as much due to COVID. Well, at all due to COVID. But yeah, this part of the country is pretty wild. We live basically where the high desert meets the eastern front of the Rocky Mountain Range, and within 30 miles of here, you are in the largest piece of contiguous designated wilderness in the U.S. aside from Alaska.
Wow.
So it gets pretty rowdy pretty quick. We do a lot of paddle boarding, mountain biking, and ice climbing, and that stuff's, you can check out on a 5 o'clock on Friday and be in the mountains in 20 minutes and come back out on Sunday.
So I know you spend a lot of time, photographing like, water heaters and, pumps and all this kind of stuff. Do you do nature photography as well?
A little bit. The only thing that keeps us from doing nature photography hardcore is kind of the barrier to entry is the lenses that you need for that. Yeah, so the lenses that we run for HVAC stuff, my most expensive lens would be $2,000, right? And if you want a good 800, 1200 millimeter lens for shooting stuff like in Yellowstone or wherever, you're looking at 30,000 bucks.
For a lens.
And what is that? That's like a telephoto lens that can get crispy from far distance, basically.
Yeah, from way far away. And the thing, they weigh 40 pounds and they're 4 feet long. They're huge. And if you want to if you really want to professionally be in the nature photography game, that's what you need.
Wow.
We have found ourselves doing a little bit like so Black Diamond. Black Diamond is a climbing brand. Last year we shot a video for Black Diamond doing some ice climbing. That stuff is fun. We probably don't do it more than once or twice a year, but it's a ton of fun. You're hanging 300 feet off the deck. It's negative 10 degrees, and you're hanging off a rope on a sheet of ice, filming a guy coming up to you. So
yeah, I'd probably try anything once, right?
Give it a
if you
go.
have any interesting photos or videos that you can send me, I will patch them into the editing of this, just so people
Sure.
can get an example of the wilderness that you run wild in here. We always like to include that type of stuff as well. Naturally, actually, if you have whatever photos you'd like for me to include of Bond or Terrence that you got as well, I'll add them into the mix as well. So once we're done here, just shoot me an email with a few things, and I will happily slap them into the edit here. So are you from Pennsylvania?
Yeah, originally, yep.
Excellent. Okay, cool. And you big Penn State, I have Penn State bona fides in my family as well. My in-laws are from Clinton County, which is like, right, you know where Clinton County is?
Yeah.
You must, right? Is Penn State is actually Bellefonte County, I think?
Penn State is Center County.
Center County. Okay, it's like right in the area of Central PA where kind of used to it because there ain't nothing there either.
Right. There's Penn State University and some small mountains. It's gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. Especially, everybody talks about the New England in the fall with the leaves, but you get that in central Pennsylvania too, especially up towards State College.
Absolutely. I go to Central PA often enough to visit my in-laws and whatnot, and you're right. And I mean, it's an interesting kind of like a untouched area that people don't really know about there, like North Appalachia. It is, I mean, for kayaking and snowshoeing and all that sort of stuff. It's just as good as any place else, really. So,
Yeah, it's
how often do you get back home?
Well, not more than twice a year. So this year, I always go back at Christmas. We go back for like a week at Christmas, and then usually I'll have something work related that will take me back at least in that general vicinity. So this year I went back in May for Eastern Energy Expo. Flew into Harrisburg or Philly, I forget. Drove, spent like 2-3 days with the family. Dad and I road tripped up to Eastern Energy Expo, and then went back down to Lancaster, spent a couple days there, and I think we visited 2 different contractors while I was back east, and then flew back here. So yeah, twice a year is about it.
If you're out here again for Eastern Energy, we try to go. None of us went this year. We were represented by our rep. I've been to all of them in the last, 5 years or so. If you're coming to that again, give us a heads up. We'll connect. If you're driving anywhere near the area and you want to swing by the plant and see,
That'd be cool.
Says, see how the sausage is made here. We'd love to host you over.
Will you be at AHR?
Always.
Okay, so
come see us there.
We'll see you there for sure. There's a couple of other things. I'll write you a lengthy email after this with some of our plans for AHR or whatnot, and naturally we extend that invitation to you as well. So it'd be kind of a fun thing. We always try to do some interesting things around AHR. So this year will be our return. We bowed out last year because the Omicron thing was like sort of cresting right at that time, and it was Vegas, right? It was
Vegas
at
the crest.
An interesting situation there, but we are back in force this year with our biggest booth yet. So it'll be a good time. We're looking forward to that in Atlanta. Yeah, it's in Atlanta this year. So
where are you guys based out of?
Upstate New York. We're
for North America.
Okay.
In New York.
Yeah, so we are the North American branch of the building products division of a much larger corporation. We do like a majority of the manufacturing takes place right here in Albany, New York, and we support the US and Canada and maybe Mexico,
And
eventually.
and you guys are actually extruding pipe in the US in New York.
Oh yeah.
Right behind this wall is 2 extruders.
So a
That's
flex
awesome.
extruder, a rigid extruder, thermoforming, hand tooling. We've got all kinds of
5-axis CNC machines.
Yeah,
There's a ton of machines.
we got
back
all
there.
kinds of welding processes going on, like behind us. So much so that we have to close the doors here because you could actually sometimes hear the machinery when it's like really getting going over there and hooting and hollering from the manufacturing floor as well. Yeah, right, like literally behind this green wall is where the CNC machine used to be, and there's now a bunch of hand tooling stations. We we've posted some really meteoric growth over the last like 18 months, 2 years. When I first started, we were about 18 employees, with only maybe 4 people in the sales organization. Now we have 18 employees in the sales organization, and we're getting close to 100 head of cattle here, I guess. Wyoming terms.
Yeah.
So yeah, but we've added all kinds of stuff lately because something that maybe we should talk about. It'd be interesting if you'd want to learn a little bit about or you probably actually have knowledge of this already. The metamorphosis of the fuel gas codes in this country are turbulent and confusing, and something that we are obviously focused on because we primarily go on high efficiency appliances. So as the appliances evolve, so too must the vent system. And it's, that comes with certain challenges, and the fuel gas codes move slowly as the wheels of government do and stuff. So that's one of our main focuses all the time is what's going on in the world of IAPMO and ICC and NFPA.
International Fuel Gas Code.
Yeah, and state level jurisdictions and all this kinds of stuff. It's very, very complicated. So if you want to have a chat about that, I'd be happy to let you know what we know as well, which is just another petal of the onion of HVAC.
So how much of that change are you seeing the most rapid change at the state code level or at the federal level?
That's a good question. I think you can even peel the onion even a little deeper to municipal.
Yeah, countywide and
level.
citywide sometimes.
And it depends on the state.
Even individual inspectors can have their own situation.
Their own take on it. Yeah, so it depends on the state, right? Like recently, Massachusetts, for safety reasons, went to a much more restrictive, which favors us. A much more restrictive venting standard, again, for safety of their, constituents. And, that's been a good, boom for us. There's stuff going on in counties within, of all states, Alabama, which is not a state that is very regulatory, if that's the right word.
Not known for its progressive ideals.
Regulations, right? But there's some things going on in 2, now 3 counties. And then again,
that's on the, just to give credit where credit is due, that has a lot to do with the great representation we have in that area. Tim Morales and Associates, who maybe they're mainstays in HVAC. They have a lot of powerful lines.
HVAC and plumbing.
They are making inroads because they're very professional with the way that they approach the government element to the job.
Yeah, and then there's states like Utah are moving, as a state to something that's again based around UL 1738 and other regulations. But it depends on state to state. Metropolitan New York and the 5 boroughs, just that little that little chunk has certain regulations. So there's no, even though there's all these NFPA and ICC and International Fuel Gas Code and all these regulatory bodies, there's not a uniform approach across the US. So one of the things that we're, and this is, kind of self-serving here a little bit, but one of the things that we're trying to do is, as Matthew said, right, appliances are evolving, so too should the venting systems. That's part of the education that we're trying to provide into the market.
Yeah, and that's one of the big things. We are a very big training organization. We have accredited non-commercial must not be, so it's not an ad for us, but we have CEUs and PDH accredited presentations, which are strictly educating on vent material selection and the evolution of fuel gas venting over the years, from low efficiency stuff that wasted all this heat to stuff that vents at a higher temperature that requires higher operating temperature.
Resistance to condensate and the acidic content of condensate.
Right. So we have these presentations that engineers take, and they earn 3 CEUs from American Society of Plumbing Engineers, or NATE, for example, is another one that we have credit with, ICC, all of these things. And again, they're not branded, right, by their bylaws.
By their design.
It is not an advertisement for us. This is not a sales pitch that we're giving to a contractor or a wholesaler. It is straight up education. Mallory, our BD engineer out of Boston, put together our current ASPE presentation, and it's actually like a comprehensive history of flue gas venting that really traces the evolution to current day. And just yesterday, her and I were working on the US map and all of the weird specificities from state to state, and it's blinding. It's a rainbow of colors, because
it's a ragtag code and enforcement map. It's kind of quite crazy, actually.
Well, that kind of brings up a question that I've often wondered about. And I'm going to get jumped for asking this question. There will be some contractors out here that listen to this and be like, he doesn't know what he's talking about. But it's a question, right? I'm asking legitimately, especially if you're a contractor that within your territory, you may have a number of different regulatory bodies, or you've got different inspectors in different areas. And depending on maybe which direction you drive that morning, you're going to be under a different code body. So I've always wondered, okay,
yeah,
so
we deal with that
you
actually.
could, I'm sure you do. I'm sure it's a big thing when it comes to training and product. And but so you've got a couple different ways that you can vent high efficiency appliances. So you've got CPVC, and you've got poly's at the top of the heap. Like, there's really no going up from like Centrotherm product, right? Like, you can't vent with better material than that if you're talking high efficiency appliances. So a lot of these contractors, I see them still venting with CPVC, right? And you're like, well, does CPVC work? We're not going to get into that, because from my understanding, and again, I'm not a technician, I'm not an engineer, like, sometimes it works, sometimes it's questionable, sometimes you still get some burn marks on it, whatever, but it's allowed by code. So I've often found myself wondering, why don't they just wholesale switch the trucks over to poly? Like, why isn't that a thing? Why isn't that just the industry standard now? Does it cost a little more? I'm sure it costs a little bit more, but in the grand scheme of, you are replacing a boiler, right? You're replacing a boiler, right? In a house, you're redoing the near boiler piping, you're putting in a boiler, you're putting in an indirect tank, or maybe it's a combi, whatever, right? In the grand scheme of things, is the cost difference significant enough that it makes it cost prohibitive? I don't think there's a situation where
So
it
truth
is.
to be told, we actually beat on polypropylene is going to save money handedly in certain diameters, and there is an element
And
of
it's competitive in most diameters.
Yeah.
The larger the diameter, the more competitive it becomes, especially if you're common venting, because of the speed of installation, right? But to your question, here's the two things that I encounter the most in my scope of responsibility, I guess. And every contractor is going to have their own opinion, right? But the two that are recurrent is, hey, I stick with what I know. I've been gluing. That's what I do. Sticking with what you know, again, in a self-serving perspective, is not the way to go. But sticking with what you know is old school. It's maybe comfortable because you know it, but it's not the best solution. It's kind of the buggy whip, right? Eventually, it is going to go away. The question is not if it's going to go away; it's when it's going to go away. So that's part of it. The other part of it is, hey, it's in the O&M manual for, the OEM says I can use it per ASTM, I don't remember the exact number, 441 dot blah, 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 right? But if that contractor, and this is something that we tell contractors all the time, is kind of follow those breadcrumbs, right? what is that ASTM 441 say? Go read it. And what it says is, and I think Matt's clicking away over here.
Yeah, I'm looking up
trying
the
to bring it
I'm
up.
going to bring up the specific
It
standard.
says it's not to be used for combustion gas venting. So when the OEMs introduced that into their O&M manuals, polypropylene wasn't around. Other venting materials were not around. So it was kind of like, hey, I got to vent this stuff. Metal doesn't work because I got condensate, and now it's gonna, B vent's not gonna work. It's gonna deteriorate because of the condensate. So I need to provide some guidance. So they picked the standard, which doesn't apply to combustion gas venting, and they've left it in there because, other than one or two guys, Wiesmann being one of them that stands out, that said, do not vent with, PVC or CPVC. It just has gotten through. It's become the norm, and people have done it.
Yeah, so just to read from something that I'm working on right now. Most Schedule 40 PVCs operating temperatures fall below the high efficiency venting requirements, with one exception. There is listed PVC out there that does exist, and we have to make sure that we mention it because it does exist out there, and it is used with great frequency in Canada. The Schedule 40 is not listed to relevant mechanical standards. INO manuals will state that PVC is tested to an ASTM standard, and they will point to ASTM 1785-21A as an example, but that standard is written about Schedule 40 PVC specifically delineating that it does not include provisions for the use of these products for the venting of combustion gases. So basically it's like, yes, it's listed to this whatever, but it has no
plumbing standard.
But it has no bearing. Yeah, it's a plumbing standard that has no bearing on using it as a vent material. So it's an interesting sort of like, shell game, that is being played, which is crazily enough often what is even in the installation instructions of the appliance. So it's very strange. I mean, it's a pretty big leap and a big mouthful that I just said, right? So try to explain that to someone, at a job site, like while they're
who's been doing it for 20 years, been gluing pipe for 20 years.
Yeah.
But and sometimes it's a very difficult thing, and we try to do some of this stuff for education, right? It's a difficult thing to tell I'm not an installing contractor. I've not done an installation of a boiler, right? Personally. So me going to a plumber and saying, hey, you shouldn't use it, this is why, doesn't carry a lot of weight. So you almost have to tell them hey, you're installing it per ASTMI 1785, blah, blah, blah. Do you know how that reads? Did you read it? And do you understand why it was used, when it was used? And it's an education purpose. Guys like Bond, going back, kind of circling right back to where we started. Guys like Bond, guys like Terrence, these guys that are professionals that read and understand and are, the true craftsmen in what they do. They've done the research, and they are, solid polypropylene users, whether there are polypropylene or others, or there are others out there. But we try to, to bring awareness and education through the right things and not really put anybody down, because that's what they learned, that's what they do. Just be open to, understanding why things have changed.
Right, and the critical thing is safety. Right.
At the end of the day,
so,
that's what it's about.
I'm the marketing manager here, right? And I don't go and do macabre stuff, and I don't do scare tactics and things like that, although sometimes people tell me to directly do that, right? Roger Wakefield, I don't know if you know him. He's somebody who you might want to look into a little bit too, as somebody who is a big time influencer in the zone. He's a big YouTube guy and that's all he does. He's not actually an installer, but he has the knowledge. He was. Oh yeah, he's got the bona fides, and now he's just media. And I mean, the man is hilarious. Number one, he's got this amazing Fu Manchu mustache. He's just a legend, this guy. He specifically is someone who says, well, why wouldn't you like go for broke on the scare tactics and stuff like that? And obviously there's a conversation to be had about how to approach it and remain positive and things like that. So we kind of we let other people sort of make that argument for us sometimes. We've been dropping a lot of names here. So here's another one, Buddy Felt. He is a very professional installer in the New England area. He works for a company called Cullen Mechanical. They install IntelliHot like every day and twice on Sundays, and they are using pretty much exclusively Centrotherm product and
for those
for
their-
the high efficiency stuff. And I mean, and his whole thing, like he'll go on to LinkedIn or he'll go on to an Instagram and he will be like,
he'll shame people.
you are going to kill someone with this kind of thing. He doesn't care, right? He's set. He's a great contractor. He's got his book of business. He's doing it right. So he's not trying to, pull any punches. And that's the type of like aggressive masshole that he is, right? So he's out there with that kind of stuff, and I mean that's how he's educating, right? So we let people like him use that methodology to get out there, and he does. I mean, he's a great advocate for us as a result of that. So, and people like Terrence don't do that, but you can see in their Instagram posts, well, what kind of vent material they're using on their Navians every single freaking day of the week is the Centrotherm stuff.
Mm.
That was a good question, and we
Yeah.
went on the side.
And I get all these resources that I could share with you as well. Like I just made an animated GIF of the latest map that we made. So it shows what the map picture looked like for just the US, not Canada, which is a whole other story, but what the codes looked like in, I want to say June of last year. Then there was some different changes and updates for October, and then we just redid it. And you can just see like how more complicated it is and how much different changes have been in various
how
states.
it's progressing to a more aware installer base. And bringing it back to the comment of, it's not a matter of if there will be a safer, or enforcement of US 1738 or another safer standard. It's a matter of when. And through the progression, I mean, we track state by state, almost county to county. And again, we try to influence it. But we've seen steady progress, people moving from ICC, 2015 to 18, I may get the years wrong, to 2020. There's progression as awareness grows, and as these, code bodies are becoming more aware of the hazards of not having a high temperature material, to vent with.
Yeah. Well, you should take that map that you made, that GIF, and turn it into an NFT. And then every time one little county changes, you can sell it as a completely different NFT.
That's not a bad idea.
I just don't know who's going to collect them.
I'm gonna make a Matty P's GIF LLC over here, and then maybe do that there. Credit to Mallory and Isaac, our engineers, who actually did all the research. I am just the pretty pictures guy. So that's all I did was add the colors and the polka dots, literally polka dots to certain states that to delineate all kinds of stuff, right? There's stripes, there's crisscross, there's polka dots, there's cities, there's county. I mean, I'll send this to you and you're going to be like, oh, wow, this is, I mean, it's highly complicated.
Patchwork of different codes and enforcement.
Yeah.
It sounds like a full-time job just keeping up with it.
To some degree it is. We don't have a dedicated person doing it, but as Matthew said, we've got two good resources, Mallory and Isaac, Mallory Epstein and Isaac Favada, who are part of the sales and marketing team that are charged with, tracking and managing and seeing how things progress.
And we do also try to, as much as we can, I don't want to say work these angles because that sounds so sleazy, but like, get involved, let's say, right? So we belong to Hardy, for example. I'm sure you're aware of Hardy, and they have lobbyists that work for Hardy that go in. We've, had some chats with that. We've actually had our congressman who's up for re-election in November come to the factory and, take a tour and sort of introduce him to this stuff. I mean, not everybody really, knows what goes on in a mechanical room. I mean, me included. I used to work for NPR before I started here. On my interview, the former VP asked me what kind of water heater I had in my house, and I had no idea what the hell he was talking about, right? Now I know.
Turn on the faucet and it's hot.
Yeah, it's like,
what do I need to know?
It's like, I don't know. Do I smell? I take showers. They work, right? That's basically what my level was. Now I know I have, a tanked A.O. Smith with natural draft venting, and I'm waiting to install a tankless Navian with our burgeoning terminations, in the next couple of weeks. Make a little marketing project out of my own house, right? And actually a Watts expansion tank on that too. So, I'm mixing it up over here with all of our friends throughout the industry here. But yeah, I mean, like Paul Tonko is the guy's name. And I mean, I actually asked him in the Q&A session, I asked him what kind of water heater he had in his house, and he didn't know. So,
it's funny how it's funny how, see, when you came into this industry, kind of reminds me of like just that mindset. Like when I came into the industry in 2009, right? You used to walk into a mechanical room and you're like, wow, metal stuff, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
now you go in there and you know it's actually exciting.
It's,
It is.
It's very, very cool. Especially when you walk into commercial jobs and stuff, which kind of leads me to a question I had for you guys. I mean, obviously you're selling more residential size product than commercial product, but as far as like a gross revenue generator, what's bigger, commercial or residential for you guys?
Oof. Given the, I mean, the volume
it's
of,
that's a question that has like some subset answers to it.
yeah, the volume of residential growth has been explosive. Commercial, you know, I came from the electrical industry before I came here. And our rate of growth, if I was having it there, I would not know what to do with myself because it's been so fast. I mean, we doubled our incoming orders last year. Business is good. You know, our production facility is slammed. But the sheer volume, as more counties are coming on board, more states are becoming aware, just the absolutely explosive growth of residential business, you know, is just crazy. That's outpacing in every aspect commercial. Not to say that commercial is not growing, because it's growing, you know, very rapidly. But you know, 2-inch and 3-inch are by far the fastest growth when it comes to diameters. But every diameter is growing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So we've taken up a lot of your time already today, sir. So, and this actually turned into a bit of you interviewing us, which is totally fine.
That's all
And you know, welcomed as well. Any final thoughts before we let you get back to creating the, you know, the kingmakers of the industry through the craft of your pen?
No, I think that's good, guys. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. I enjoy the conversation. I look forward to meeting you at AHR. I will absolutely stop by the booth in January.
Excellent.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing you there.
Yeah, I'll be in touch, you know, in a little bit to, you know, follow up on a couple of those things that we were talking about as well. And like I said, if you have any, you know, any amazing photos of majestic owls or whatever you're snapping out there in Wyoming, I would love to include them. And yeah, thanks for your time. It's you know, keep up the good work. It's people like you that help support people like Terrence, people like Aaron, that then grow this industry further, which then in turn helps support us. So we can't thank you enough for this work. I mean, I've read a number of your articles on all this sort of stuff. So obviously you're plugged into this stuff, and just by the nature of what you're doing, you are promoting the trades, and that really is what this podcast is all about. So we can't thank you enough for joining us here.
It was a pleasure, sir.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Have an awesome day.
You too. Thanks very much. Have a good one.
See ya.
Ladies and gents, we are bringing this episode to a conclusion. Would like to send a hearty thank you to Dan. That was quite the interview. I think both ways, right? We interviewed him, he interviewed us. We typically don't like to make it a commercial on Centrotherm, but he had some really relevant questions. Very enlightening what he does in the industry.
Yeah, it's our first true, I guess, marketing personality besides myself, I suppose, that's been on here, as he is not, you know, a contractor himself, but focuses on the industry and all of the stuff around there. And it's funny because, you know, we just start chatting, and then he's curious about our stuff, and we start talking about codes and enforcement and, you know, jurisdictional things, and how we work with the same type of people that he works with.
A lot of common threads and people we know. Interestingly enough,
right,
which even tied into the Show Us Your Pipe winner. One of the first people he mentioned happened to be our Show Us Your Pipe winner.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we are a friend of Aaron Bond. He is a friend of ours. We really admire his work ethic and professionalism and sort of like lust for life attitude. He's always smiling, which radiates, you know, I mean, we always talk about authenticity, and, you know, he's certainly not putting anything on there. The guy wants to do good work, have a good time doing it. I mean, everybody on the crew in those reels stuff look like they're, you know, they're doing it, and it all turns out really, really well. So thanks to Aaron for just being him and doing just, you know, the pinnacle of HVAC work and installations and stuff, and going so far as to have a media crew on hand to document it all so that that end product is as slick as that it is. I mean,
that not only was that work amazing, but that, I guess it goes with the house, right? That house looked incredible. I'd love to see it in its finished state, but that was quite an amazing home that he was working on.
indeed. So homeowner, whoever you are out there, it's time for a dinner party. Greek salad, a little souvlaki.
We'll bring some wine,
That's
you
it.
know.
Absolutely. I got some fresh oregano that I brought over.
Did you bring any feta cheese?
I did not bring any feta cheese.
My mother brought
Did she really?
not feta. She brought Kephalonia, which is a hard cheese.
Oh, interesting.
She actually brought a half. How she fit it in her luggage, I don't know. Half a wheel of a Kephalonia cheese was smuggled into the.
Really smuggled in, like in her luggage?
No, it was in her luggage. She bought a
Okay,
half
that's
wheel
fine.
of cheese, had the local cheese maker vacuum seal it. Does not have to be refrigerated because it is a hard cheese. And you know, when I was lifting her bag, I'm like, gee, what did you bring home? Why? And she's like, I got a half a head of cheese.
That's amazing. I did tell you that the TSA took my olive oil, right?
No.
So I don't know if it's true or not. My wife is like obviously very on the ball with
Here
this
in the
stuff.
U.S.?
In the U.S., yeah, I'll tell you. So my wife said that there is a dispensation for bringing Greek olive oil in, as it is like a big export for Greece.
Oh no, I did not know this.
So that's what she said.
Well, I knew it was an export, but I didn't know they.
So I got some like kind of weird conflicting advice from the TSA and the United people as I came out there, and ultimately the TSA did not take. They let me take my giant bottle of ouzo through my duty free. I had small.
That's one big win there.
Yeah,
for you.
of course. And I mean, all the other stuff was all solids and food, even though I mean we had like little bags of olives and oregano and all this other stuff, right? And like little knickknack souvenirs too. But the olive oil, which was in a large canister, was not in a clear bottle. And that is what the TSA said was the problem. They could not see it, so they had to take it from me.
So if it was in a clear bottle, they would have allowed you to bring it in?
That is, I guess.
Did you have it in a duty-free bag?
Yes, I did.
Oh, that's crazy.
And it doesn't matter anyway. So the real deal was, the problem was that Athens to Dulles, where I met Bernie Sanders, personal hero of mine, at
Really?
the airport. Yeah. Oh, actually,
You didn't tell me.
Yeah. I took a photo of him, but he was wearing a mask. I met him in the airport. He was flying to
Oh.
Burlington. We were flying to Albany. So
Interesting.
we were right at the same gate area, right?
Okay.
He stood up. He was wearing a mask, but I heard that voice, and I was like, I know it's him. So, and he gave me a fist bump,
Okay.
it was cool. But we had to go through customs, go through passport control, and then as we were connecting in DC, basically go through the same process again to get to the next thing. We had to like exit the security and then go through security
So
again.
it wasn't customs coming into the U.S. It
No,
was
it
your
was
connection
it was
back
TSA
to Albany.
from DC to
So
Albany.
we do all kinds of education on this program. Look
Yeah,
at that.
so
Careful with your olive oil.
make sure you're buying clear bottled olive oil, otherwise.
Or put your cheese in your luggage.
Yes, is Yaya watching? She could be a nice.
I don't think my mother knows how to get on the internet. No way.
Well, it was a wonderful time. I actually got to see the Sakaris estate in
I wouldn't call it
Kephalonia.
quite the estate.
Oh
but
my, breathtaking view from the back. Oh my
yes,
gosh.
in that respect, yes.
And I hung out with your kids and
did.
your wife, and we went kickboxing, and I'm sorry, taekwondoing.
Yes, we
And
did.
we saw turtles, and we went into caves. I mean, that was just like Kephalonia, which is a place that I will definitely go back to in the future. What a majestic place, really a trip of a lifetime for me and my wife. I've told this story 1,000 times now. Everybody's like, how was it? Right? I don't know that I'll be able to top this anniversary ever, right? So August 5th was my six-year anniversary. Thank you very much. And me and my wife saw some dusty old rocks, and then I got my tires changed. No, I'm sorry. We went to the Parthenon, and we saw some ancient stones. We went to up the Acropolis. And we went to the Parthenon. So we went to like the premier tourist attraction of Athens, let's say. Then we went into the Plaka, and we got some famous sandals from Pentelis
Sandal maker?
Milisonos, the poet sandal maker. I didn't say that name right, but the poet sandal maker of Athens, whatever. And then the tire joke is we went to a Michelin-starred dinner in the shadow of in full view of the lit up Parthenon, which obviously they put these giant spotlights on, and it is just majestic. So we sat there.
We went on my son's birthday, which happened to be the full moon of August.
Yeah, that's August 8th, I want to say.
August 12th.
August 12th
was the full moon, which they leave the Parthenon open late in the Parthenon Museum. So we went, and it was free. another plus.
Yeah.
On full moon. So if you go to Athens, go on a full moon night. Not only is it beautiful with the full moon kind of overlooking the Parthenon, but it is also free.
Yeah, I mean, just amazing place.
TripAdvisor moment going on right now.
Yeah, take the funicular up to Mount like Abetus if you're over there in Athens. I mean, of course, the museums are everywhere you go. It's amazing. So there's really no place you can go wrong. And I mean, everybody asked me how the food was, and it's like I'm not sick of Greek salad. I made one with that fresh oregano that I brought back just the other day. It's the Kephalonia from the glorious Price Chopper. I'm sorry, the Kephalonia, the feta. That is not the amazing imported Greek stuff, but from the Price Chopper. But still very good. And you know, I look forward to going back. And I also look forward to receiving my bouzouki in the mail, which
you add to your music. Right?
Oh yes. So I just did the tracking, and I believe it is like skyward right now, in between New York and Athens. So I'll be bouzoukiing up. Greg Sakaris, I'm coming for you.
He doesn't play the bouzouki, I don't think.
Oh, no?
He plays the guitar.
Oh, he's not the bouzouki guy?
He's not the bouzouki
guy.
guy.
Never mind, Greg.
You're gonna like up jump.
Whoever the bouzouki guy is, I'm coming for you at St. Sophia next year. We're gonna.
We have a new bouzouki player.
No, like I said, so I do some guitar influencer stuff on YouTube. And I'm looking forward to doing the Grateful Dead clip where I transpose Grateful Dead songs onto the bouzouki and play them traditional Greek style. So that will be something that pops up on a different YouTube channel in the future.
Coming to you soon.
That's right.
So again, thank you to Dan from Common Grounds. Congratulations to Aaron Bond for being the winner of Show Us Your Pipe. Quite the house, quite the install. And I don't know if I have anything more to say.
No, we'll see you with the fall rendition of Show Us Your Pipe. Yeah, you'll get that too. But Mechanical Room for September next month. We'll see you again real soon. Thanks for sticking around this long through these digressions and all these other inside jokes that we talk about. And we'll see you soon.